Good luck, guys.
So here we go, action underway at the final table of the PokerStars Championship Barcelona main event. You will get to see every single hand live, whole cards up, as we follow this through to a winner. So just to recap, we've got the last 23 minutes of the last level of yesterday to play out. Blinds are currently 100,000, 200,000 with a 25,000 ante.
James, just to head off some of the questions we may be getting from new viewers, the way we're able to show you the cards live, face up, is because the picture that you were looking at happened 1 hour ago.
Yes.
James and I are live. We're seeing it for the first time right along with you.
And we are not seeing it alone. We have got one of the best poker players in the world, a man with lifetime earnings of $34 million. He is #1 on the all-time money list. He is also from Team PokerStars Pro. Joining us on the stream to analyze the action, Daniel Negreanu. Welcome, Daniel.
Thank you. You reminded me. $34 million, right? I look back and where did it all go?
So this is the first hand of the final table. We have seen a raise from Lachazir Petkov. The Bulgarian player has made it 425,000 with Jack 5 of diamonds.
So Jack 5 of diamonds is not a great hand, right? You typically want to play 2 high cards, you know, pairs, good aces. But if you're bluffing and you're just trying to steal what's there already, a hand like Jack 5 of diamonds, why not?
Sebastian Sorensen is the second shortest stack at the final table. He is in the big blind. He's already got chips invested. He is going to call. And he's got a dominated 5, Daniel, a worse 5, 5-4.
Yeah. But sometimes when you're in the big blind, which means you've already put in a bet and it's one more to you, you can call with a lot worse hands like 4-5. Now this is bad for Sorensen because he's got a little pair of 4s, but Petkov has what's called the better kicker with the jack. So he's in front right now. Oh, no, actually he doesn't. Good call. Sorensen's flopped the pair, so he's gotten very, very lucky. I thought they both flopped the pair. Never mind. What do I know?
Sorensen had what we like to call one live card. One card that he didn't share with Petkov, managed to hit it. He's technically ahead right now.
So neither player electing to bet on the flop. They both check. We get the 4th community card, the turn, which is a deuce. And obviously from Sorensen's perspective, Daniel, yes, he's got a pair of 4s, but he is slightly worried about the king and the queen on board.
Well, that's one of the problems with playing some of these garbage hands, is that when you hit a flop, you don't really hit it that well. So, you know, if he's up against the king or a queen, he's in trouble. If Petkov decides now, you know what, I can't win with my Jack 5, I'm going to bluff at it, it would be a tough spot for Sorensen. But it looks like Sorensen's grabbing some chips like he wants to bet, which is interesting. He's at least thinking about it.
So normally, Daniel, if people are betting in poker, it's for one of 2 reasons. Either because they think they've got a really good hand and they want to win chips, or they think they've got a really bad hand and they want to bluff. What's Sorensen doing?
Well, I think right now he's protecting his hand. So I think he thinks right now that he has the best hand.
Okay.
And he's trying to, you know, protect it. It's a very vulnerable hand with just a pair of, and it worked. So with just a pair of 4s, he's worried that a lot of cards might come that beat his 4, and he makes a good bet here and picks it up. I wonder what would have happened though if Petkov would have bet the flop. So sometimes if you raise before the flop with a Jack and a 5 and you don't flop anything, sometimes you should just bet anyway and hope that the other guy didn't flop anything. It could have worked.
Otherwise known as a continuation bet.
There you go. Yeah, learn something new every day.
Continue your aggression.
Yeah, continuation bets essentially, if you raised before the flop and then you bet again on the flop, that's what's called a continuation bet.
A reminder that the Twitter hashtag is PokerStarsTV. That's how we see your questions and comments. Gina says, so glad to watch and hear Daniel Negreanu's advice and comments. A true inspiration for many years. Hope to meet you in Prague. That's where the PokerStars Championship will be heading towards the end of this year. A question from King Hawk on Twitter. What is the ante about? We talk about the blinds, Daniel, with this kind of forced bets that 2 players at the table have to make. Why do we have antes in tournaments?
Okay, so blinds are essentially like, you know, the blind bets, right? The antes are there to promote more action, right? Because the more chips that you have to put in before the flop, the more hands that you should play. So without any antes, without any blinds, the only hand anyone would ever play is pocket aces. So this forces you to kind of not be able to wait as long for, you know, those really strong hands and make you open up and do a little more risky play.
Gives you something to fight over.
We've got potential action here. So Raffaele Sorrentino raised in first position under the gun, or UTG. Jack 10, but Andre Akari has found a pretty solid hand here. Ace King, no re-raise.
This is what's surprising here for Andre. I think he's worried a little bit. When you see that UTG, that means under the gun, which is the first position. Typically, when someone raises from there, they have a very strong hand. So it's possible Andre's maybe worried about Sorrentino having a really, really strong hand, or Andre might be hoping that one of the other players says, you know what, there's a lot of chips out there, I'm going to steal it all by going all in, and then he can essentially set the trap. Right now, for example, Sorensen, if he decides to get frisky, he's just going to call, though, which I like. So now Andre's not going to love the decision. I think I would have re-raised if I was Andre there with his chep stack.
So Andre calling with the ace-king, Sorensen calling in the small blind with ace-deuce. And looks like Brian Kaufman has folded his big blind. So 3 players, 50% of this final table going to the flop.
Dan, you
So
want to
now
talk a little?
Sorry, go ahead.
You want to talk a little bit about the positions of these players?
Well, yeah, we were getting to that. So this
Okay.
is a great flop for Andre Akari, as you can see. He's flopped aces and kings. Trouble for Sorensen because he's also got aces. He's got the ties pair on the board, but he doesn't have a very good kicker. He can't really win unless he catches some sort of miracle like hard heart. As for Sorrentino, he can only catch a queen for a straight. But since he raised before the flop, this looks like a flop where he might just do that continuation bet thing and try to steal it right now.
The steal ain't gonna work. So Sorensen first to act. He taps the table. He checks.
First act, the least desirable position in poker.
So now to Sorrentino, who was the guy who raised pre-flop. Chip denominations, by the way, you may have seen them on your screen a short while ago. The smallest chips in play are the greens. Those are worth 25,000 each. The blacks are 100,000, and the burgundy chips, 500K.
So this is a good time for Sorrentino to bet, right? So everyone might be watching going, why is he betting with just a jack and a 10? Because he raised before the flop, Andre didn't re-raise him, Sorensen didn't re-raise him, so hey, maybe nobody has an ace, he can just steal it right here. I like the play. Now from Andre's perspective, he wants to keep him in right now. He's just going to call, play possum, you know, hope that Sorensen comes along and really win a big pot.
So Andre Akari has called the 525,000 bet from Sorrentino. Action now on Sorensen, who is clearly worried about his kicker, worried about that deuce, so he folds his pair of aces.
Daniel, why might Andre just call there and maybe not raise? He's got top 2 pair.
Well, I mentioned that already. I said because he wants to suck people in and win an even bigger pot. Now look at this fold. Had Sorensen would have called, he would have made aces and deuces.
And that could have cost him a lot.
Yeah, I think if you're Sorrentino now, you know, you think, oh boy, this guy called me on the flop. Do I want to continue telling this story of a bluff, right? Do I think that I can push Andre off the hand? I think he should know now that Andre probably has an ace here and maybe just wave the white flag and give up.
Or even if Andre doesn't have an ace, he still might not fold, even if Andre had a king.
I think you could probably make a case that a bet here would get Andre off a king, but I think Sorrentino's doing the smart thing, and he's just going to check here. Most likely what we'll see is Andre bet to protect his 2 pair, and I don't see Sorrentino calling with a gut shot straight draw. Gut shot meaning inside, right? So you have, you know, if you have like, you just basically only one card can make it a straight, which is the queen.
Well, right now there is 2.675 million in the pot.
You can see Sorrentino's chances of hitting that queen are only 8%. 4 queens in the deck. Each card represents about 2% probability.
So Andre bets 975,000.
So a little bit of a smallish size bet. You know, he wants to get action here. Andre played this hand in such a way before the flop and on the flop where he's really playing it slow, hoping to catch Sorrentino or his opponent's hook, line, and sinker and doubling up his stack.
Andre doesn't have a lot to worry about.
So now Sorrentino's not thinking about calling, guys. If you're thinking that, oh, he's thinking, can I bluff here? If I raise Andre all in, does he have the guts to call me? Or will I be able to get away with it? Because he doesn't think Andre has ace-king. Good fold from Sorrentino, but that's what he was thinking about, stealing those chips.
And the Brazilian fans on the rail are loving it because Andre Akari is now up to a 50 big blind stack. He's closing in on the 10 million mark. He is back in this thing. A reminder that yesterday he was on life support. He was on the verge of elimination, playing just a 5 big blind stack. We thought he was going to be out in 7th place, but now he's 3rd in chips.
Andre eventually found the double up with pocket kings, slowly chipped his way up from there, managed to avoid going out in 7th.
Yeah, well, there's a saying in poker, chip in a chair, which essentially means if you've got a chip and you've got a chair, you've got a chance to win.
An expression which Joe invented back in 2011.
Did you really? That's
2011,
impressive.
yep.
Oh, I thought it was Jack Strauss in the 80s.
Nah,
Hand number 3.
same initials as me, which is probably why it's confusing.
Right. Oh, notice there, Andre had a pretty good hand, right? King 10. He decided to fold. The reason he folded is because he's in early position. You want to basically play a lot more hands when you're in position, meaning on the button or next to the button. In first position, you want to be a little tighter, and Andre makes a relatively tight fold there with King 10.
So it's round to Sebastian Sorensen on the button. He's got pocket jacks.
Well, this is a very strong hand for this situation.
Very strong hand, strong position. That D you see there means it stands for dealer. It means he's on the dealer button. That means you're in last position.
And often when someone's in last position, you know, everyone thinks, okay, if he's raising, he's just trying to steal the blinds and antes, right? So they might get a little frisky. If Sorrentino picks up a hand like maybe A6, A7, he might decide, you know what, I'm going to push this guy around and re-raise. With 4 or 5 offsuit, I don't see that happening. You might call, though. You might call to see a flop here with the 4 or 5.
It's 275,000 to call. There was over 900,000 in the middle. It's a relatively small investment for winning.
Yeah, because you've already got half the bet in, putting in the other half is fine. Now, this is potentially problematic for Sorrentino. He's got a pair of 4s, which is nice. That does not beat the jacks of Sorensen. On this board, there's a good chance he's going to at least call on this flop and continue to the turn. So we're going to have a pot go to the turn. I bet on that.
Hands like this are pretty tricky, right? Because you hit a pair. What really were you hoping to hit? You don't really
that's a
fold
good
a
hand.
pair
Like,
that often.
you think the guy in the button is raising with a lot of hands, maybe ace jack, ace 10, ace king. So a pair of 4s, unless Sorensen had a pair to start in the hole, or he caught a 9 where he has a pair of 9s, you probably have the best hand. And you also got some chances to catch 2 pair, catch trips. You can catch perfect cards for a straight. So it's what I call a good. If you're going to play 4-5 and it comes 2-4-9, that's pretty good flop for you.
Just not if you're up against jacks.
Yeah. We shall see.
I love how Sorensen's got his scarf on, even in his little avatar.
So Sorrentino has to decide whether to call this bet of 750,000. He is calling.
Yeah, I think this is what we call standard. You know, you'll hear that term a lot in poker, where, you know, that's basically just the normal move.
Autopilot.
Yeah. So the 8 does not help Sorrentino at all. Sorensen can't be too worried now. You know, if you've got an overpair to this board, you just keep hammering away.
And this is a spot, Daniel, where you would bet for value, meaning that you think you have the best hand, you want to get paid, but also for protection a little bit too.
Yeah, a lot of the times when you're value betting before the river, you're also protecting, you know, the strength of your hand. The question here, I mean, Sorensen should be betting here. And if he does, the real tough decision will be on Sorrentino. Like, does he call with just a pair of 4s? Does he think his opponent's bluffing? And that's what poker boils down to a lot in the end. Is my opponent trying to steal from me?
So just to recap, Sebastian Sorensen won his seat online. This is only his 2nd ever live tournament. He claims to be a huge mixed martial arts fan and a huge fan of Conor McGregor.
Ooh, he might be a little tired today then.
Too soon? A second barrel from Sorensen.
Tournaments all around the room. It's one of the great things about the Barcelona stop is you got events, right? You got the main event happening, you got side events happening. But all the drama right here at the final table. The tough decision now for Sorrentino. You know, good chances pair of 4s was good on the flop. But what about now? What about now when your opponent's bet the board on the flop and he's bet again on the turn? Are your 4s strong enough to stand another bet on the river maybe? Or do you just dump it right now?
Does it make it trickier that this dynamic between the dealer button and the big blind is the position also where someone is very likely to keep betting with nothing?
Sure. Like I was saying before, the dealer usually plays a lot of hands, so they're going to bluff a lot more from that position. And Sorrentino knows that, so he looks at his pair of 4s and thinks, okay, well, this guy could be trying to steal this from me. There's other things Sorrentino's thinking about. Like, well, maybe Sorensen is just, he has 10 jack or 10 queen, and now he's going for a straight or something like that. It's either that or you're in trouble with fours. He's going to make a really good fold here. Sorrentino showing some good discipline. That's not an easy fold. Like, you might be thinking, well, he only had a pair of fours. So what? It's not an easy fold when it comes 9-4 deuce and the turn is an 8 to just fold a pair of any kind.
Good question here from Gerard. Hashtag PokerStarsTV. How do you know all the hole cards? Gerard's noticed that we don't have cameras on the table. Are they microchipped? Yes, Gerard, they are. There are tiny chips in each card. There are scanners underneath the table. That's why you notice the players put them in boxes side by side, and then the graphic system reads that information.
Yeah, and of course we see this on a delay, so no one has access to the whole cards until, what is it, an hour, 30 minutes?
Yeah, it's an hour-long delay today, and as Joe explained at the start of the play, it's a bit weird in the sense that the action we're watching actually happened 60 minutes ago, but we're seeing those pictures the same time as the audience is seeing those pictures, which is how we're able to interact and answer your questions.
So now Andre with a 9-7 suited. This is the kind of hand that has a lot of good potential to hit flops. It's not a very strong hand on its own, but Andre's using this hand to kind of like, you know, people know that you raise under the gun, whoa, that's a very strong hand. Well, you don't only want to raise with strong hands. You want to have some other hands that are kind of fun, like this one. So I like this play from Andre. Remember, the very last hand, he folded a better hand, the king and a 10 offsuit. This 9-7 suited, a little trickier, and I like it.
It makes a lot of what we call disguised hands also, right, Daniel?
Yeah, you want to have some deception in your game, and not just, oh, he raised from that position. He always has aces, kings, ace, king, or queens. So this is a good play from Andre. He's getting respect from the table, it looks like. Back on the big blind now. Who does have an ace. Now, ace is the most powerful card in the deck. When it comes with a little 4, you don't feel that great about it. Because the problem is, as we saw earlier with Sorrentino and Sorensen, I'm sorry, with Akari's, you have an ace and a 2. If someone else has an ace and a king, you need to catch your 2. Otherwise, you're not going to win the pot.
The flop is 7-7 deuce.
Pretty good flop for Andre.
So now the real
Sevens.
question is, Andre's thinking, oh my goodness, this is awesome. How do I get the most chips possible? That's what he's thinking right now. And he might check this back.
Petkov might think that ace-high is the best hand.
Sure, and what's also interesting is Petkov has the ace of spades. So on that flop, he was thinking that. No longer an issue. But now he's got 7s and deuces with an ace-high. Andre checked back. Petkov's going to think, well, maybe we were splitting the pot. Maybe Andre has an ace. He's not going to think for a million years that Andre has a 7.
To give him a full house.
Petkov checks. I think Andre should bet a relatively small amount and ensure that he gets maximum value here. And he does just that.
Yeah, we've got a pot of 1.15 million, and Andre's bet is 425,000.
A couple of flush draws out there, too, now that people may chase sometimes. It's a little dicey on a double-paired board.
This isn't, you know, it's not out of the realm of possibility that Petkov says, you know what, I'm going to check raise him here and bluff. Because it's very unlikely, you know, Andre raised in first position that he has a deuce or that he has a 7. So it wouldn't have been a bad spot to try the bluff there. It wouldn't have worked because now Andre's got an even bigger full house.
When did you like your hand, sir?
Wow.
Flops, trips, turns a full house, turns, rivers a better full house.
Life's good.
So now the question is this, right? You know you have the best hand. There's 2 million in the pot. How much will your opponent call, right? If you bet too much, you might scare him away. You don't bet enough, you're not getting maximum value. So now it's like being a car salesman. You know, I know 3,000 is too little to, you know, charge for this car, but 15,000 will scare my guy away, so let's go around 7 or 8. If I was Andre right now, I'm trying to bet about 1.1 or 1.2 million.
Is there an argument to charging someone so little for the car that they have to pay you?
Sure, yeah, in situations where you don't think they're going to call much more. Looks like he's bet a little bit more. He's going for value here.
Plus, you can throw in the Corinthian leather, the undercoating, the AM/FM radio.
Yeah, this is a chunky bet here, 1,675,000.
So what's interesting about the bet, right? And this is maybe a more advanced concept. What he's doing is he's polarizing his hand, which means he's either on the polar opposite of I've got the absolute best hand possible, or I've got absolutely nothing. Petkov doesn't bite, and he loses some value. He might have gotten called for cheaper, but we'll never know.
So Andre Akari off to a great start at this final table, now second in chips with 10.6 million. Meanwhile, Elkanah is a huge fan of what he's watching right now. He says, I don't know what's more fun, watching Daniel play or listen to his analysis on the broadcast. It's a race.
Well, I'd much rather be playing, for the record, because when I'm playing, I'm often doing the analysis as well.
Out loud, too.
Yeah.
Hashtag PokerStars TV if you want to get in touch. Nenad says, I'm new to Twitter, just want to say hi, enjoying this final table at PokerStars Championship Barcelona. Smiley face.
Next, he needs to learn emojis. We're off emoticons, bro. It's emojis. It's all about the emojis now.
Siddiqui in first position now. He's only got 17 big blinds, right? So the question is, okay, do I want to just make a normal raise, or am I just going to stick it all in? An argument can be made for both. Neither is wrong. You know, ace-queen is a very strong hand. There's only 6 players per table.
All in.
Yeah, I like it.
The only wrong thing he could do there is fold.
So now he just has to hope that nobody has a big pair or nobody has ace-king. He'd like it very much if someone with ace-jack decides to call.
Sure.
Or ace-10. Because he would have those hands dominated and be about 67 to 70% favorite.
Well, Sorensen and Kaufman have both folded. Sorrentino is out. Just the blinds to get through. Petkov in the small blind.
He's also perfectly fine not getting called at all here.
And Akari folds the big blind as well. So the shove gets through. Raise and take it for Usman Siddiqui. Still the low man at the table with around 4 million chips. I know it's ridiculous to say he's low with 4 million, but it's all about the size of that big blind. And right now he's only got 20 big blinds.
And Daniel, you said that at the start of the end. He only has 17 big blinds. When would you start using the word only?
Well, I think right around, right around the 17 mark, actually. You know, 20 big blinds is a playable stack, depending on the type of hand you have. Some of them don't play as well after the flop. Like an ace-queen, it's kind of one of those where let's just get it in before the flop, because unless you catch an ace or queen on the flop, you're never going to be too excited about it. But you go all in before the flop, and you pick up a nice chunky chunk of change where he moves up, he picks up like 2 big blinds without even having to risk a flop and a turn and river.
So this is hand number 6 of the final table. Folded around to chip leader Rafael Sorrentino. Now around to Lachizar Petkov, who's currently 3rd in chips. Starts the hand with around 9 million. Not going to play his button, so blind on blind. Andre Akari in the small blind. He's got King Deuce offsuit.
Well, King Deuce offsuit is obviously not a very good hand, but you've only got one more guy to beat, right? There's only one player left in this hand between you and taking those blinds down. So sometimes here, if you think you can get away with it, you want to, raise and take it because your opponent's short on chips, or maybe you could just call the bet. I think it's a little too strong to fold. He's going to go ahead and make the raise, and he's really just hoping, Siddiqui folds. He does not want to get called here.
He also doesn't want to get shoved on.
Siddiqui with Queen 10.
So interesting decision here for Siddiqui.
Yeah,
He's got a hand strong enough to see a flop. He could pull the trigger and say all in. Those are his 2 options. Folding's out of the question, I think, in this case.
Is it a scary move going all in, Daniel, knowing if you get called, you're probably not in very good shape?
It is a little bit, but I think if you're Siddiqui, right, and this is an important consideration if you play tournaments, he's currently in last place, right, of the chips. So when you're in last, you should be the one taking more risks because everyone else is waiting for you so that, they can jump up in the prize pool. The difference between 6th place and 5th place is something like 70,000 euro, right? Well, everyone's waiting him out. He should be the aggressor now, and going all in wouldn't be a terrible play, but neither is call. And he's going to make the call.
The latter option that Siddiqui goes for, so heads up to the flop.
The drawback of calling is that you have more decisions to make afterward. If you move all in, that's it.
So this is a very interesting spot, right? Nobody has anything, as you can see. But Andre Akari showed the aggression by raising, right? So who's more likely to have an ace, him or Siddiqui? Siddiqui, if he had an ace, he probably would have went all in before.
He's almost never going to have an ace here.
So Andre right here should go ahead and push the envelope and take this pot on the flop right here with a bet.
And obviously, he still has the best hand for now with King High.
Of course. But when you have King Deuce and you see that board, you think, oh, man.
Of course.
That didn't help me. So for Siddiqui, he's in an interesting situation now. He can catch a king to make a straight. The bet size is relatively small. The problem for Siddiqui is we all know he doesn't have an ace, and guess who else knows that? Andre. Andre knows he doesn't have an ace. So it's hard for him to, bluff here and represent something with an all-in bet.
We can see that Siddiqui's odds to win the hand, to catch his cards that he need are 35%, but he doesn't know that necessarily. He doesn't know if Andre has an ace or a jack. That would change things quite a bit.
Right. If he thinks that Andre has an ace, now he can only catch that king, and that 35% dwindles down to a very small number.
Siddiqui folds the hand. Born in Warsaw, resides in London. Has had some great results online, including a Sunday Million final table and a Spring Championship of Online Poker title, but more of his chips have just gone across to Andre Akari, leaving Siddiqui hovering around the 15 big blind mark. And now we have moved up to level 33. The blinds are now 125,000, 250,000 with a 25,000 ante. And Daniel, we talk about this game all being about the size of the big blind and how that divides into their stacks. I think it's fair to say that this final table is relatively shallow. No one has a chunky stack.
Right. Obviously, you start the tournament and you get something like 250 big blinds, which means you can see a lot of flops, you can take some risks here and there. Right now, every one of these players at the table is in jeopardy of going broke on any hand, except for, of course, the chip leader. They're all shallow enough where if you get a pair of queens and someone gets a pair of kings, your fate is going to be on the deck. So definitely a very high-pressure, intense situation for all the players remaining.
Yeah, we just need to see a few eliminations to ensure that that average stack goes up. This has been folded to Andre. He's on the button.
And as I said before, the player on the button is usually the one that's going to be the loosest, playing the most hands. 10-deuce suited, again, not a very strong starting hand, but when you're on the button, you want to open it up and apply pressure.
So the raise is to 550,000. King 3 offsuit for the short stack. Usman Siddiqui in the small blind.
So Siddiqui has a king, which is a great card, but the 3 is not. If he had a king and a queen, a king and a jack, that might not have been a bad spot to go all in. Ooh.
Well, Sebastian Sorensen with the ace queen sitting in the big blind. Chips already invested. He's got roughly 30 big blinds in his stack.
This is a good spot, I think, for Sorensen to re-raise. As we said, Andre could be opening with a lot of different hands. If you don't re-raise and you don't catch an ace or a queen, you're going to lose this pot a lot of the time where, you're going to win it right here before the flop because there's no way Andre's playing 10-deuce suited.
But also, 30 big blinds a little too much to just move all in like Siddiqui might have to if he had that.
I think you can, actually. I mean, because the truth is, if you're Sorensen and you raise, and now Andre moves all in, you're going to have to call anyway. You've put 1.4 in, million. You're probably going to have to just put the other 4 or 5 million that you have left in, too, as well.
At what point do you have too many big blinds to move all in this position? 40?
Yeah, I would say so. But, frankly, you don't really need to move all in here because here's the thing, right? Sometimes Sorensen is going to do this move with nothing, with like a 7 and a 2, right? So sometimes he's doing that, and sometimes he's going to have the really, really strong hand like ace queen. If he has the 7-2 and Andre says all in, okay, he can fold that one, right? So he puts Andre in a quandary a little bit by saying, okay, I might have this, with a really, really strong hand, or I might have nothing.
Also, if Sorensen moves all in here, Andre definitely folds 10-2. Sometimes Andre may decide, okay, I'm going to re-raise back and get himself into some trouble. He gives Andre the chance to make a mistake here.
You give him the rope, as we say.
Yeah. Get a rope.
Give him the rope.
Andre lets it go. Sebastian Sorensen adds to his stack, now playing 8.5 million. Roughly 35 big blinds. Okay, we've got a game you could be playing at home while watching the action here in Barcelona at 5 p.m. Central European Summer Time. That's 4 p.m. UK time. There is a special satellite for the Sunday Million Live.
Somebody died.
You'll find it in the PokerStars tournament lobby by searching TV. It costs 1 Stars coin to play, and we have put in that satellite 25 seats, 25 tickets to Sunday Million Live. Those tickets worth €215 each. The idea of this tournament is you play day one online, and if you make it to day two, you get to come to King's Casino in Rozvadov in the Czech Republic to play for a slice of the €1 million prize pool. We're going to be streaming the last 2 days of that tournament. So if you want to play that game, fire up PokerStars, find it, and register using 1 Stars coin.
Every time I look at one of your laptops, I see some Game of Thrones things, and I'm scared to see a spoiler.
It hasn't aired yet, Daniel. You've still got like 12 hours to go.
Oh, that would be the worst.
If you don't want to be disturbed, I would recommend never looking at my laptop.
Okay, that's probably a good idea.
Well, action here has been folded to Siddiqui on the button with 8-5 of hearts. He folds. Sorensen in the small blind.
So, you know, from Siddiqui's perspective, right, he had an 8-5 suited, you think maybe he can steal. He doesn't have a lot of wiggle room, right? For him, if he's going to do it, he's got to go all in or nothing with just 13 bigs.
Sorensen with a pair of deuces. Still keeping his mouth covered by his Miami Dolphins scarf. And I know you don't get this thing, right, Daniel? This is some people trying to hide, like, their neck pulse or trying to hide kind of unconscious twitches of the mouth, but...
Either that or a very bizarre fashion statement that I'm so, like, not hip with. I mean, kids wear weird things these days. You never know, like, the saggy pants. When I was young, we did safety pins in our jeans.
I thought he had a goiter.
Did you ever do that? The safety pins to taper your pants?
No.
You never did that?
No.
That was like a thing. Tapered pants and Doc Martens?
Nah.
Oh, man.
Sorensen folded the deuces, and it looks inspired when we see that Kaufman actually had pocket threes in the big blind.
Well, that's actually a strange play. I'm surprised that he would fold deuces there. Not standard, as we talked about before.
But just to go back to what you were talking about, the jump in the prize money, everyone is kind of expecting Usman Siddiqui to go up next. I guess people are going to be playing tighter than usual, just waiting for him to bust so they can earn themselves some extra money.
Yeah, so one of the interesting things about when you're playing tournaments, right, is everyone looks at that juicy 1.4 million euro and thinks, well, I want that. But at the same time, for every time someone gets knocked up, you earn money.
Yeah.
So if you just sit there and do nothing and someone goes out, right now you're going to win an extra 65,000 euro. Moving up each time. So there's two factors to think about. Playing to win and playing to like ladder up and wait out your opponents.
So this is the ninth hand of the final table. Sorensen with a junky hand on the button decides to fold. Brian Kaufman in the small blind has a very nice hand, pocket jacks. And he just calls.
So when Kaufman just calls here, he's hoping Sorrentino raises. He's fully setting a trap right now. There's no way he's folding. He wants Sorrentino to push him around, and he might.
Yes,
this could be
Sorrentino.
all in. We could have Sorrentino raise, Kaufman all in. I'm betting that we have a confrontation here.
4, 5.
Sorrentino with the king-queen, the two overs to the jacks. Just looking at how many chips Kaufman has.
Sorrentino is the chip leader, and often the chip leader is going to be more aggressive. And here he goes. He's going to raise.
He puts a cherry on top, one of the burgundy chips. So that's another 500,000.
So now if you're Kaufman, this is do or die, right? You got jacks. You're up against a chip leader who might have anything. This is the time to go for it and go all in. The question is, will Sorrentino call with king-queen? He just
Kaufman
called?
continues to play it slow,
No,
just calls with the
that's-
jacks.
That's really surprising. With his stack size and only having 20 bigs.
And look at that.
Oh, boy.
King Jack 10 on the flop. That is top pair for Sorrentino. Plus he's got the straight draw. Kaufman with a set of jacks.
And checks it.
Yeah, this is one of those situations where if I'm wrong here, I'll quit commentary. We're going to see these two players get it all in. Sorrentino's got to love that flop, top pair, and he's got the open straight draw, ace or a 9. Kaufman, he's got 3 jacks. You're never going to fold here with that, especially with these chip stacks.
Okay, so Sorrentino about to bet. There's the continuation bet. Do you think we now see the raise from Kaufman?
If not now, when? We're running out of time. I think for Kaufman, he has to be a little bit worried about the potential draws on that board. So he might want to just protect what's in the middle, stick it all in, and if Sorrentino folds, great. You pick up a nice addition to your stack.
No, just a call. He just calls the 750K.
Slowest play ever.
Very strange here.
The turn card is the case jack.
Wow.
He's just turned quads.
I think there's a potential here for Sorrentino to get away from losing all of his chips here because Kaufman misplayed this hand. He should have sprung the trap either before the flop or on this flop.
Kaufman checks the turn. Action on Sorrentino.
Sorrentino's got to hate that card, right? He thinks to himself, well, I've got a king, so the jack's a very likely card for my opponent to have, and now he's checked it back.
Yes, Sorrentino says, let's see the river for free, which is the inconsequential 3 of clubs.
This hand was played very strangely. This is not typical of what you see at a final table of such a large event. Kaufman playing extremely cautious, and I think it's going to cost them some value.
So 3.15 million in the pot.
So now you expect to see about 1.5 million bet from Kaufman, and Sorrentino going to call, and Kaufman's going to miss out. Well, he's going to miss out value on a lot. Look at this. This
There's
was
the bet.
really
Quick
poorly
call.
played.
And yeah, can you beat that? Can you beat the nuts? No, you can't beat the nuts. 975,000, but he could have lost a lot more.
If I'm
than that.
Sorrentino right now, I'm saying, thanks, Kaufman.
Yeah.
You know, even though I lost this hand, I got to feel good about the fact that I didn't lose even more, because Kaufman let me off the hook here by not pulling the trigger before the flop or on the flop. Sometimes you can slow play yourself to death here, and I think that's what Kaufman did. He should have pulled the trigger earlier.
Not quite to death, but not to as much
Right.
life as you could have had.
Yeah, that. So Kaufman may be in this moment feeling good about himself. Hey, I've won this pot, but like I wonder later if him and his friends are going to look back and go, "Why didn't you double up there?"
It's probably where the phrase "leaving something on the table" comes from.
Yeah.
Well,
I
by
think he definitely
losing
did
that pot, Rafael Sorrentino has lost the chip lead. Andre Akari now has the slight chip lead over Sorrentino at this 6-handed final table with still an hour to play at this level. Blinds 125,000, 250,000 with a 25,000 ante. First break of the day coming in 60 minutes' time.
You know, and I think that Kaufman sort of winning the minimum there is probably best case scenario for the way he played it, because there's a chance that Sorrentino makes a straight there also. Before
he made the four of kind, yeah. Again, it's just one of those spots where you want to do what's called slow playing occasionally, which means you have a very strong hand and you play possum like Andre Akari did earlier with the ace-king when he flopped ace-king. But a lot of times it's better off. You're better off just pushing the envelope, and I think that was a situation that was clearly one where Kaufman should have done that.
I think a lot of us who played poker before used to, when we slow play in that spot, not making quads on the turn, but having a turn card that we hate come off.
Well, right. If a 9, a queen, an ace comes, now you're like, uh-oh.
So round to Sorrentino in the small blind. Queen 9 offsuit. He just calls.
So a lot of times what you see, especially at the higher levels, is the small blind against big blind situations come up, and the small blind just calling. The reason for that is you're going to be out of position throughout the entire hand, and you're not in a position of power. So a lot of good players, myself included, will just limp in here, not raise, especially if we think our big blind opponent's going to call a lot. So keep the pot a little smaller, call it some small ball.
So Lachizar Petkov in this hand. Had some support for him on Twitter. Martin K tweets, hoping that my Bulgarian brother does well on the final table. Also, it's great to hear the GOAT, Daniel Negreanu, analysing the action.
Oh, Phil Hellmuth is not going to be happy with that.
I got a funny Phil Hellmuth story, but I want to say first, this flop, right, ace, 3, 4, you look, nobody has anything, right? Nobody's going to, the player who wins this spot is the player who wants it more, the player who's willing to bluff at it. As for Phil Hellmuth, he just came out with a book, right, called Poker Brat, and it says, story of the world's greatest poker player. And right underneath that, it says, Forward by Daniel Negreanu. I didn't know that he was going to do that, but I think it's hilarious.
Just a needle right on the front cover.
Forward by Daniel Negreanu. Yeah. So one of the things you got to be careful of when you're at this stage of a tournament is asking yourself, like, am I here to play to win, or am I playing not to lose? The players that typically play to win, guess what? They win. The players that are not playing to lose, they often come second or third place. So what really matters, it's up to you. What matters to you? I mean, you come in third place in this thing, you're going to win yourself over €500,000. Not too shabby.
It's another reason why experience counts. A guy like Daniel is in there. He's not quite as afraid of losing. It's not his first time at a final table.
Yeah, and I don't think it's a coincidence. You see Andre skyrocketed now to the chip lead because Andre Akari does have a good amount of experience. The money's not scaring him. But for a lot of you guys watching, I mean, you got to imagine, like, if you were in these people's shoes, right? You think, oh, I would have done this, I would have done this. You don't know what you would have done unless you're sitting here. And you've got all the pressure on you, and someone's moved all in, and you've got pocket jacks, and you're like, ugh.
Pretty much everybody makes mistakes. Every poker player.
Except Phil Hellmuth. Just ask him.
Right.
It's a very strong hand here to raise on the button. Ace-9 suited for Sorrentino. So Sorrentino's position at the table is interesting because, when you have like the chip lead, you typically want to have, the real, the players that can't mess with you too much on the other side of you. Right now, he's got to mess with Andre Akari, likely the most experienced player at the table in the big blind. But he's not going to defend here with the 10-2 suited.
Sorrentino got an ace to fold correctly. The ace was folded in the small blind. But against the button raise, some people are going to stand up to that. Sorrentino, really well liked, has already won a main event this year on this tour.
I mean, that's really impressive. When you think about the field sizes that we see today, there were 1,600 players, just making the final table in this thing.
I hate to nitpick. It was 1,682, which that's another 81 players you got to get through.
That's true.
I mean, that is significant.
Yeah.
I've never outlasted 81 players in a tournament.
Yeah, because, I mean, no matter how good you are at this game, guys, it takes